I'm all about do it yourself. If I can build something myself and save a bunch of money, I'm gonna do it. We finished up the mods on the Alaskan mill the other day. I never really took any close-up pics so you could see how it's built. There's lots of people already have mills and they don't need to see it, and there's lots of people, you can go anywhere pretty much and buy a commercially built mill. But this one, I built it just to save money. Way cheaper. I think it might have been 20 bucks. This mill is about as simple a design as you can have. It's just a generic design. I think it took me all of 10 minutes to decide how big to make it. I just fit it to the saw. Just make it super fast. Here's the other thing. And like I say, I built this to fit a 30-inch bar up to a 36-inch bar. So the actual frame of this guy, 20 inches, 10. These, well, you can see the sockets. There's nothing really to them other than, tack welded a nut on there so you can just tighten up. Of course, there's a hole drilled through the socket, right? So it'll bite on this vertical. And your mill has to have these two little standoffs here, right? Because your bar is going to be here. Your chain's running in between there. There's not a lot of clearance when you look at it. So when you're milling, you want to make sure your chain is correctly tightened so there's no slop in playing it. Otherwise, you're going to be eating some steel and you won't cut very long or very well like that. The only thing I bought this square tubing. The square tubing I bought. Everything else was scrap. Like I said, 20 bucks. The Husky 372. I sharpened that last week and I took quite a few strokes off the rakers. I was a little bit worried, but we just ran it up in the backyard, did that little test, and she cut. No issues. So obviously my raker sharpening job, file job is good enough. Now, oh yeah, that's the other thing. Saturday, going back to Swan Hills, and we're milling more, we're going to mill more pine logs. My buddy's got I guess he's got a pretty good stack ahead of us, so we'll have some fun. Let's inspect my buddy's welds. Nothing wrong with those. That's not going to let go anytime. Those are plenty strong. It isn't perfectly straight, but it doesn't actually have to be. Just the bar has to be secure in here and your depth adjustment, right? Because this guy just glides down either your rails when you're starting your cut, or once you have that top slab off, these just run on the top of your log on the flat after you got your first slab off. Check this out here. Do it yourself. Do it yourself file handle. Turn that just on the bench grinder. Put a hole in it here. Put an Allen key on that. Let it spin on the Allen key and ran it on the grinder. Works great. You can guess that this didn't cost me a dime. Alright, rambling on here. I love homemade, keep it simple, stupid, that sort of thing. These things are anywhere from 120 up if you buy them. And this is stronger than hell. Just 1-inch square tubing, my homemade bar guard, and the next thing I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to cut some spacers. I'm going to make spacers 3/4 of an inch thick, an inch thick, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. They'll be the width of this. Then when I put my bar in, I go to set up my depth cut. I'll just put that spacer there, bring the thing to it, tighten her up. Here's my spacers I made for quickly setting up the jig. 1x2, my one for my first cut, and 1 by 1.5 inches. Really, really fast. Including that first cut, the first cut you do on your first slab, it's about a 7-inch spacer I'm going to need for that. Okay, I put the saw in the mill so you can get a real close-up look at how it's set up. That's your spacer on each side. Holds your bar. Can't see the one in here, but the same idea. And that's set up at the highest point. You can see in there, like, if I wanted, I could mill just like 1/2 inch thick board out here. There's the idea with the spacers. Drop them in, set the mill down, tighten it up. That's it. That's with a 1 by 1.5, so that's a 1-inch thick spacer right now. I thought I was going to do 1.5 inch thick material. There you go, 1.5 inch. 1x2, same idea, drop that in. And then the big one, for setting the depth of that initial cut, put these guys in there. I mean, that didn't look fast, but that's a lot faster than frigging around this side and that and holding the tape measure. Now all I got to do is tighten. To me, I'd rather go cheap, 20 bucks, and have one that's just fit to my saw, and I'm just going to use one saw. This 372 XP, this is 71cc saw. It's fairly powerful, but to me, I sort of think it's the minimum size saw that I'd ever want to mill with. And I'm not milling huge lumber with this. One advantage to this type of a mill, homemade, right? I've only got 6 nuts tight. These 2 on these vertical adjustment bars, and the 2 that hold the chain bar. 6 total. Those commercial mills, they provide all this adjustment, and they're meant for you to be able to put different size saws in them, which, you know, it doesn't even make sense to me. The commercial ones, there's 14 nuts you've got to tighten. And when we used the one that my buddy had, while it worked great, there was a couple of times that we had bolts work loose from vibration. Really. Here's my railings. I never really looked at these railings close to show you, but what I did was I put a larger hole here. I just got a screw there, right? This is your starting end, so it needs to be held really securely. I did the same thing with a larger hole, screw head into that. And this guy, when I screw him down, he anchors the whole thing and he levels it up, because when you set that guy first, rails are straight, and then you just literally screw the 2 ends on. It's ultra fast. This end, I have a screw here that just goes in and toenails into the edge of the thing, and it actually doesn't matter how long the log is, well, up to the maximum length of these rails, but I can slide this back any point and just screw it in. I don't have to play with trying to figure out, you know, how to tighten up. Yeah, the only thing wrong with these would be the length. I almost toying with the idea of getting some longer ones or working out a socket system to add extensions. Well, we're going to smoke some whitefish, so we got to go in and start working on that. I guess that's going to be it for my little video on this homemade mill. If you got a buddy you can weld, if you can weld yourself, you can afford $20 worth of square tubing or angle iron. If you want to go even cheaper, you could build it with angle iron. Knock yourself out, make yourself a homemade mill. Later.